This is Anthony Venable here with Aaron Bell. Aaron's going to share his feelings about the Rodney King beating. Hello, Aaron.
What's up? How y'all doing?
Okay. Neither of us was born in '91, which was the incident of the Rodney King beating. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Even though Rodney King was drunk driving, do you believe the police officers had the right to overthrow their use of power?
No, I don't think they had that right at all. I think because he was drunk, they should have taken it easy on him because it was 7 cops surrounded him and beat him down. So if you got one drunk guy against 7 sober armed police officers, what can the one guy do? I mean, they should have just took it easier on him, but hey, just because he was drunk driving doesn't mean he deserved to get almost beat to death.
Exactly. Now, from my understanding, a lot of the people in the jury during the case were whites, and they felt like since he was drunk driving, he had broken the law and he had got what he deserved. Do you feel like they were wrong for looking at it that way?
Yeah, I feel like that was not the way to go. That wasn't the way to approach the case. I think they were just using him being drunk as an excuse for some of their own prejudice sort of opinions. Because if you got mostly whites trying to convict or judge a black man, you're gonna have some prejudice in there somewhere. And I don't think they should have approached it like that at all. They should have just judged the police more so because at the end of the night he was drunk and high, but he still got almost beat to death. I mean, just getting beaten by 4 other cops that were fully armed, and 3 of them got off in the end. I mean, before they retried him and everything, but man, the jury, I think it was a little messed up, and I think it was slighted that they would pick an almost all-white jury for that case. That was just.
Now, if you recall the jury at the time, would you have found the officers guilty even though they are trying to do what they supposed to do?
Yeah, I would have found all of the officers guilty because the jury says that they were trained to basically beat the guy down, but I think the police were trained to defeat more armed criminals. And when you have Rodney King, he was basically unarmed. The only possibly dangerous thing about him that night was he was drunk and he was high. And I mean, he wasn't dangerous because I mean he was stumbling half the time. So I still would have found the officers guilty because they weren't trained to beat an innocent, unarmed victim down like that. That was an abuse of power, I think.
Now, if you didn't know, when the incident was recorded, it was released on national TV a day later. Now, of course, people felt like it was defensive to others, and there were a lot of riots going on for about a couple of days, and a lot of businesses, and there was a lot of damage. When the whole thing ended, 55 people were killed, 2,000 was injured, and it was about $1 billion in property damage. Now, if you were there at that time, would you have been one of the rioters?
Um, that's a hard question because I wasn't, actually there. But if I were, I don't think I would have gone that far as to go out of my house, take time out of my life to burn buildings down and fight with people and fight with the police about one man and one incident. It was a real bad accident. I mean, not accident, but it was a real bad incident. But I don't think going out into the streets and rioting and causing a whole bunch of other damage. I mean, 55 people died after one man already got beat. The riots only just made it worse, in my opinion. I wouldn't have just wasted time doing that. I would have spent more time wondering what was going on with the trial and why the officers were getting off while the innocent guy was still being beaten. I mean, there was no problem solved after the riots was over. The police were still sitting at home with their feet up while the black man, Rodney King, was recovering from facial fractures and all that. So I would not have rioted. I would have done something more productive.
Now, after the case was over, Mr. King was awarded $3.8 million. Do you believe he should have been awarded more money?
If you want a yes or no answer, I say yeah. I mean, you should have got a lot more money than that. For all the physical damage, emotional damage that he suffered, I think he should have got millions, probably even billions more dollars. Because when I think about it, it's like you got to think about how much was that worth? How much was getting beat up by a bunch of cops when you barely did anything wrong to them? How much is that worth, really? It's like you gotta pay him for all the pain he's gotta go through for the rest of his life. And if that happened, you would have to keep paying him until he died, because you can't just pay somebody once and expect it to be all fine and good again. Like $3.8 million, that's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that'll ever be enough to repay him in full for all that he had to go through.
Do you find the Rodney King beating and the recent Trayvon Martin case similar to one another?
I definitely would. And it's the same overall topic we're discussing. It's racism, it's prejudice, it's sort of mindless violence from one race to another. And I remember reading something that said Rodney King, I mean, it's about 21 years after, and when he heard about what happened to Trayvon, he said, "Oh, when I heard Trayvon's screams on the audio that they had, it reminded me of mine on my tape." And I mean, it doesn't get more real than that, because that really does show you it's the same type of thing. I mean, whether it was a black cops on a white guy or a black man shot a little white boy, I mean, this one race on another race thing, it's a universal thing. And I think those two incidents definitely had something in common with each other, because it sort of reveals what a problem that this world has been going through for years now, and that's the problem of racism and people being prejudiced against one another for almost no reason. And so, I mean, until that problem is solved, which I don't think it really ever will be, we're going to keep having incidents like these, sadly.
This is Anthony Venable interviewing Mr. Aaron Bell. So, in the closing of this interview, all I want to say is I definitely agree with you. To the people out there, love, peace, and in the words of Rodney King, can we all just get along?